Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And as again, the reason we are doing these series of interviews is because there's a need. We are in the midst of one of the most challenging times collectively in our life. We are experiencing a pandemic, and to various degrees, people are feeling the pain. Whether it's the pain of loss of life, the fear of loss of life, disease, or it's the fear of economic impoverishment, losing a job, or not being able to operate a business, or it's just the divisiveness we see, the us versus them, even sometimes the fear of doctors, the people who don't want doctors around them because they're afraid that corona is right behind them. So these are times when we have to find meaning in our life. So fortunately, I've been running into a lot of people who find meaning in their lives. And one of them is Amulya Anil. I kind of knew her for a while through social media. And then I happened to find out that this young woman became an activist out of her own desire to do good things when she just turned a teenager. Amulya, tell us about your journey. How did you end up doing all kinds of interesting things like this?
I must first say that a good starting point for me in this entire journey was the very fact that I took towards literature. And for me, being a poet was not just to play around with fancy words and ensure the rhyme scheme is correctly intact, but I started approaching things in a more metaphorical way. Like probably if I would stand at a beach and look at the shores and the waters and relate it about people in your life or something like that. And there was this particular point in my life wherein I used to just take strolls in the open, just go meet out people, just to get a hint of what I must be writing about what actually would impact on me on a certain level. And I eventually, in this entire journey of being a poet, of being a literature enthusiast, I believe I've discovered that I have my own sets of thought process and my own set of approach towards things. And when the more I interacted with people, I understood that the world is more about a multitude of notions. There are different approaches, different issues people face, and also the different level in tolerance about how you perceive these issues and challenges of life. And eventually, I understood that at the end of the day, it's interdependency which works in the society. Because though we theoretically might say that a person could be actually self made, quote and unquote, I would say that you actually are a culmination of what you have observed. So even if you are saying that what you have become is just because of who you are or what you want to be per se, it's also about how you have observed people. They have a certain amount of contribution towards it. So there was this element of self satisfaction I was looking for, and to make it really impactful and really deserving, I understood that I have to make my presence known. And how do I make my presence known? That is by impacting the people's life, and how well you could cater to what the people need. How well you could nurture their necessities with your restrained or restricted abilities. So I was just barely 13 years old, and I was too much into television and all of that, and I used to read a lot of news and understand that okay, there are issues in the world, and probably one way I could do is help them. So I joined this Children's Movement for Civic Awareness Club, which is funded by the government. And as a part of it, we used to have frequent visits to various hospitals and all of that. So the hospital visit was one thing which made me feel that it's just not always the materialistic pleasures which matter in life. There's more to it. There's element of willpower, there's element of compromise, there's sacrifice, and a lot about it. So when I just looked around, I actually felt yes, you need to be there for another person, and that's how I came up with this concept of cadaver donation. So I argued in the fact that your body is totally under the control of your soul, and you can make decisions, and you can take those decisions so far as it's not hindering the life of another person. So being a cadaver donator was something I really wanted, and I felt that it must be a person's sole decision. and just must not be impacted by the approval or the disapproval by any other person, be it your guardian or your parents or anybody for that matter. So that's how I started, by fighting to be a cadaver donator, though I was a minor. And in the whole process, I did not want the consent of anybody else to be made a mandatory affair in the legal affairs.
Wow, and you're barely what a teenager when you started asking for these rights to donate your own body after you pass on, right?
Right.
And in what way did that change your life? Because you seem to have done very interesting other leadership activities since then. Tell us about that.
So, meanwhile, just after this incident, we had a very unfortunate Nirmaya crime rate case. I was just growing up. I was just, becoming a woman just right from my childhood, and there were a lot of things I actually couldn't really comprehend about how the entire thing was. I studied pretty much in a school wherein it was a little much conservational in nature, and also I think we all know about the how the society norms are. We don't generally discuss about issues which are so-called related to social taboos. We do not talk about sexual harassments. We do not much talk about cerebral equity in the realm of feminism and so on. So this particular incident maybe made me probe more into what actually gender roles are and how it is impacting over the society, and how these numerical and quantitative factors such as age, such as gender, race, religion, ethnicity, whatever, have been hindering the very progress of humanism. So that's where I decided that yes, we actually need to do something about it. So I launched an online petition which was demanding the Home Minister to intervene and also put a significant amount of pressure on the judiciary so that the convicts are given with death penalty. So that is one more thing I did. And apart from that, I've been engaging in imparting education. And here I would like to make a point very clear, is that education here is not what I call as knowledge. As in, we know that if people are capable, then they will learn things. So I've been trying to go to various rural schools back then in my, higher primary and senior secondary times, and I've tried to interact with them, know what the issues are, and how exactly we can make them street smart. How you can make a person ready to face the challenges of their life and not just get good grades on the mark sheet. Because we all know at the end of the day, what matters is your work efficiency and your interpersonal skills, and how well you can connect to the needs of the other person, and keep a balance somewhere. And that's how I personally have approached things, be it to social activism, or be it through imparting education or child rights, more of that. So I just find myself doing things where there is a veritable balance. Like I put myself both in the place of an educator and both in the place of a student. So at the end of the day, you know what you're doing.
So interestingly, you must have selected a career path that gives you the opportunity to work with the law to make changes, right? Have you done that?
Yes, so I'm currently pursuing my law. I'm a third year student from batch of 2023 Symbiosis Law School Hyderabad. And where I find law to be a game changer is the very fact that though the subject on the face of it seems theoretical, it definitely is not. It is one of the domain which actually keeps in pace with the dynamism of the society, I must say. So things evolve, and things change accordingly to the society. You know where to restrict the rights of the people, so that there is no arbitrary exercising of anything, and you just realize there's a way to control the society, because at the end of the day it is this manifestation of law which is important to some extent to let people know about what actually is socially acceptable and what is not socially acceptable.
Interestingly, one of the challenges I see, you're the first lawyer I'm talking to in India in this series of talks, is that legal enforcement is much lacking. In other words, there are laws. For example, there are laws, domestic abuse laws, sexual abuse laws. There are laws on practically everything. The Constitution was written very thoughtfully by amazing leaders like Baba Sahib Ambedkar and Hansaben Mehta, and then has been amended also very thoughtfully, the changes that are being made. But if there's no enforcement, is there any way you can think of, since you've actually worked on real practical legal changes, how can we make the law more enforceable?
Well, to answer this particular questions, I would also, want to make some meta arguments here. We do have a lot of laws, that is right, and even with respect to implementation, we have procedural laws to govern them. But what law maximum at the max can do is instill in an element of fear and consciousness in the minds of the people. So now what a person desires to do is solely his discretion because the consequences of his act are very well clearly played out by the legal provisions and he is already made known about what he would have to face in case he is not complying with the laws. And that I would say that is where we come back again to the roots of our education system. There is a common notion these days that education is just limited to what the learning you do in the school, but very less attention is paid to the fact that you also learn from your life experiences and about how people conduct themselves and all of that. So I feel that there is a certain amount of personal choices involved in this, and the law is doing pretty good in that sense. So what we need to strike here is at the penury, which is about the consciousness of the people. It's about their conscience. So now we need to talk about how we can make a social impact on the minds of these people that at the end of the day, if you're doing something which is hindering another person, then your purpose of entity is just not defined. So having said that, to cut it short, I would just ascertain the fact that implementation of law, yes, we need to dwell more into it, and probably one practical way of doing it is to indulge ourselves in civic awareness and social activism. We need to take ownership on the legal system of the country. We have to make sure that in case if something is not going pretty fine, then probably you go and confront it and try to voice it up rather than just believing in a mob psychology and say that, okay, there are other people to take care of it. If there are people who can do it, then why not you as well? I think that is the kind of approach we need to
Yeah,
address issues and in the legal system.
that's so true. I mean, you are absolutely right. Wherever there's law enforcement, it's not there's already the danda, there's always that legal stick, right? But it's really the changes in culture. Because
Right.
we all want to do the right thing. We already have that conscience. But by waking up that conscience, a lot can be done. And you're absolutely right about our education system is still towards skills building, towards functional finding jobs and survival, but it is definitely evolving. And there are many extracurricular activities that can supplement that really nicely to help people build a more well rounded social and emotionally aware education. Tell me more about what kind of things you did in school. I know that you've done some interesting things that have helped you to grow above and beyond the curriculum.
So, okay, I would first tell you about my experience with both literature and the National Cadet Corps hand in hand. So, the very idea of getting into literature was the fact that I actually did not do really well in English back then in grade 5. And my parents were called, and my principal was pretty much not really happy about my performance. And I expected my parents to come and yell at me that day, but they did not. And I think that's where it made a difference. And relating this to your previous question, also, I think it's about how a person takes it. Like even if by law, if you punish a person for doing something wrong, He might come out as a reform person, or he might come out of a revenge seeker. He would want to do more heinous crimes. I think it was the same here. Probably the fact that I did not get yelled upon made me more, get into the fact that no, I will have to improve on this. So that was one thing. And apart from that, joining the National Cadet Corps has been a very, very impactful decision of my life. So I was just barely 13 years old, staying away from home more for most of my camps, mingling with people whom I did not really know, and we had to do a community living. So it was an atmosphere where we only focused on accomplishment of the task, and the element of unhealthy competition was entirely evaded away from the scene because we were in a setup wherein we do not have luxuries. We are not allowed to use multimedia. We are not provided any amenities, like you don't have a fridge, you just don't have a television and all of that. So you live a very basic kind of life, but training and trying to get to know each other and just trying to perform. So I think adaptability and openness towards the situations of life is what was important there. What initially started off as a duty because of my uniform eventually started to become a way of life, because once you realize that when you do something for people, it gives you an immense amount of satisfaction that your presence is worthy, and that itself keeps you going. It keeps you motivated for the years to come and takes you forward. It just creates an urge in you that you need to do more for the society. So being there, I have interacted with a lot of people, faced a lot of challenges as well, wherein I just couldn't go back to my parents, right? Like I was in a situation which was totally unfamiliar to me without, any sort of communication system. So I had to handle myself. That was the first point. And the second option I had, which I could do, is probably try to, create a sense of interdependency among the people who were with me. So that really helped me to understand that there are different kinds of people with different kinds of experiences who need help in different ways. Like for example, I had a difficulty in adjusting towards a non-luxurious life in the initial stages, but my other batchmates were actually happy because most of the cadets who came to the NCC were from poorer backgrounds, so they were pretty happy that you're getting food for 10 days straight. So that's where I started understanding that life is more about just materialistic things, and it's just about how you can help somebody to evolve better as a person.
Wow, very interesting. I was also in NCC for 3 years, and I was another camp. I was happy that they had good food and good see lots of places. Even build a bridge. We went to the beach and built a bridge as a camp. So yeah, I got to see many places. Bicycle far away from Bombay. All kinds of interesting things. There was even an optional bicycle tour to Goa. So I participated in some of these things. So during the pandemic, there are no camps right now, are there? At least not camps away from home.
Right.
During the pandemic, during this Corona times, uh, I suppose your classes are all also online. So life must have changed in many ways. How has the pandemic affected you, and what are you doing with your time right now?
I would personally remark that the pandemic has impacted my life in a very, very diluted form, because probably the only thing I miss is being able to travel as freely as I used to do and look at the physical places around. However, the other factors pretty much have remained same. I've always wanted to help people. That's happening. You can still, it's not necessary that you do always come up and do something materialistic for people. You could just stay at your place. If somebody is looking for some sort of emotional support, you might as well talk to him. You might as well be an motivator. So, or you might also coordinate all of your social activism from home, through social media and all of that. So that part of thing hasn't really changed. But I must say that I would want to look at the positive things. I would say that the pandemic has given a lot of time to people to sit and understand each other. Probably it has given a state wherein a person can understand himself more about what his actual needs are, given the fact that the materialistic pleasures are right now curtailed. I'm looking people. I'm just watching at how people are dealing with things, and they are pretty much taking it to hobbies. They're learning new forms of skills and all of that. So it's been pretty much the same at my end. Yes, initially it was pretty difficult for me to cope up with the fact that okay, I cannot go out, I cannot hang out, I cannot go for a party or probably travel. But then when I understood the fact that what makes all of these circumstances like travel, party, everything else, uh, cherishable is the very element of connection. And this element of connection does not in reality have any restrictions. So, be it through social media or a telephonic conversation, if you're open to each other's ideas and opinions, I think the connection could be formed. And that itself is a credible element to help people deal with the entire thing, entire pandemic.
And interesting, I noticed that you grew up in Mysore, which is a very cultural capital, I would say, in Karnataka. Are you still in Mysore right now?
Yes.
And in what ways did Mysore, the city, and its diversity and other things contribute to who you are today? What have you observed in yourself that you would not be if you were not in Mysore?
Yes, I would say that Mysore is a very small place and it keeps a perfect balance between culture and development, which I feel is important. So, in the quest of development, Mysore has not forgotten any other, values of human existence. So, being a very small place, it has never been a very, casual, carefree place like any other metropolitan city would be. So, the people here are pretty much are pretty much in possession of the same thought process. They are welcoming towards the people, and they are pretty much engaged in their own realms of work and are pretty much very non-interfering. And this element I find that is very important because it has like eventually growing up in an atmosphere like this, I've become a person who thinks rationally but also pays attention to what others think about culture. Like say suppose just a hypothetical situation, say that I do not like wearing a sari, but then if I have to go to a puja and people there believe that okay, wearing a sari or is supposed to be a thing, then I would do it because I understand the fact that people are connected to certain emotions and certain way of life, and I have a liability to some extent to abide by it. So at the end of the day, I would say that it has helped me adapt myself to various circumstances. It's not always about what I personally like or dislike. Sometimes it's also about how well you could keep up the beliefs of the people around you, and not let your personal prejudices or your personal bias to fall upon the other's way of life. So that's how Mysore has been contributing, and the other part is its heritage and its picturesque. Mysore is a place with an amazing environmental setup, and having been regarded as the cleanest city quite a couple of times, it has kind of instilled in an element of social and collective responsibility in the citizens. So I have seen the people of Mysore come together, work, and make sure they don't litter around. And even in case they see a litter, they just inform the city corporation about it. So there's a sense of element. There's a sense and an element of responsibility, and that I think is something which is very important for any society to progress. Like for any society to progress, we need to work as a society, irrespective of who's leading it.
And Mysore, which is but a few hours away from Bangalore, right? I haven't been to
Yes.
Mysore. I've only been to Mysore once in the early 1980s. It must have changed quite a bit since then without exploding in population like many other cities have. So, where do you have any suggestions for people in your generation how they can grow through these challenging times? how they can use these times to actually grow rather than survival. Hopefully, is not an issue for people of your age, but there is concern and there are restrictions, as you said, there are all these lockdown restrictions. How can they use this time wisely to make something more meaningful? Because a lot of people are restless. The rest as they don't have graduation ceremony. The 10th standard exam is randomly getting pushed out. Of course, they cannot hang out or date. A lot of too many restrictions. How can people use it in a meaningful way?
Well, I would first say that this is the time you actually have for yourself. So probably take pause, just take a pause. Say around, just take 2, 3 days out of your busy schedules and think about what actually you want to do in life, what actually you want to become, apart from being just a professional, doing some professional course or just being employed in a big firm company. Think about how you would want to impact the society. In what way would you want to know? Like, if we were just talking about probably securing a good job or just being employed, then I insist that you think about the fact that there are hundreds and thousands of people doing the same, hundreds and thousands of people doing the same professional degree as you are, wanting to get into the same organization as you want to be, and trying to get the grades the same way you are. So in all of this, I urge people of my age to take a day or two, or even a minute for that matter, and think about how you would be different, in what different way you would be contributing to the society, and why would people want to remember you at the end of the day. I think that is very important, that the person you are in a profession and the person you are outside the profession, I think people must know you both, as I mean, people must know you both well, even in your professional realm and even in your personal realm. So just take that time out and first be clear about how you want to impact the society and the kind of identity you want to make. If this identity you're looking for, if you wanted to be restricted to just your professional abilities, or you want to be a holistic and a whole person, a complete person. So once that is done, I think you just have to stick on to your passion. I have always said this, being in the NCC, whenever we hold a weapon, we have this concept of HAT. The H stands for holding, and A stands for aiming, and the T is for triggering. So applying the same analogy here also, I would say, once you decide what you want, just hold on to it. Hold on to it no matter what. And then you can aim. The second part is aiming at it. So then you can start jotting down the different ways to approach it. Fine. If you're not being able to go out of the house, or get into proper logistics or accommodation, it's totally fine. There are ways out. So just look at how you can achieve that particular aim. How you have to. You've anyways already been holding on. So just think about how you can change your paths to achieve it. And the third one is trigger. So when you know that you are done, you have a roadmap to go with, you have the self confidence, the willpower, and most importantly, the resilience and the patience to do it. I think that's when you shoot off. And that is the trigger. So, in short, I would say hat.
I remember those days when I learned rifle. What is it called? Rifle practice or something like that? We had those
Okay.
big ones, 303 or whatever the name is. And my first time, I had a score of zero on the bull. Zero. Literally, everyone went out. The second time, I was so determined not to embarrass myself. I had a full score. I think, is that 25 or something like that? You get 5 shots, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. NCC really made a man of me in terms of focusing on what's important and being staying focused. I had forgotten the contribution of NCC to my life. So besides your school, your NCC, and your what do you call engagement in activities such as community and civic activism, are there other hobbies you've been pursuing? Are there other things that you have not mentioned yet?
Yes, so being from the legal fraternity, I hold research to be one of my important pastime, and me and my team, we believe in this concept of legal innovation. So what this particular think tank or the organization does is we try to approach the various facets of law through a multidimensional approach. So we think about not only just how the law works in paper, but also about how law works in terms of social psychology, how law works in terms of criminology and all that. So research is one thing which has made me really understand how the law works, and through research I have discovered the other areas of psychology of understanding how the thought process happens in humans and how they react, like to what situation, what could be the possible reaction. So that has been an important hobby. Apart from that, apart from research and all of that, I've been a sketcher. I do a lot of sketching because that's something which has taught me patience, I must say. It's irrelevant if the art you're trying to do is something which is really a beautiful one, or something could just be anything. But one thing I believe art does to you is improves your focus and gives you that patience, because if you want to really draw something, then you get deep into it, you observe it, and then you try to put it on the exact way it is, and that requires a lot of patience. So yes, apart from that, I do a lot of public speaking because I like connecting with people. I like making an impact somewhere, be it through words or through actions, through poetry or art or whatever it is. And that's where I feel like most of the time, everything a person needs is just those, few words of motivation and a push. So it's been public speaking, research, a lot of art, painting, and all that.
Wow. Do you get a chance? Do you get a chance to doodle when you're in law classes, and have cartoons or pictures about the legal or whatever is happening, or is it completely independent of your legal profession?
I would say that though I study in a law school, we have, a cultural society. We also have a debating society, and we also have an art society, and all of that. So I'm indeed very happy that I hail from an institution which is focusing on holistic personality development and not just. Teaching the not just teaching the theoretical sections of law, because at the end of the day, all these if you want to really work or do well in your profession, you need to have a good amount of interpersonal skills. You need to have a holistic personality, and it is these little things of life which we usually ignore, like your hobbies and the other traits you get from your other experiences, which actually sum you up at the end. So yes, there has been art in terms of law as well, and even on my personal level, I am indulging into it. So it's a two-way process, I must say.
I think we've covered almost everything we could have. So I'm so grateful that somehow found you. You're the first person I found through the internet or through Facebook in particular, because I usually interview people I know very well. But I think now I know you pretty well. So, is there, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or wants to know about, your activities and or guidance, what's the best way they can approach you?
I would suggest the best way would be Facebook again. So I would
Sure.
make sure that I connect to people through that and also respond.
And Amulya, thanks a lot for your time. And to those who are listening to us, this is how we do these sessions. If you have any questions, or if there's a lot of questions for Amulya, we can always hold another session. And again, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. And good luck to you. There's so much that needs to be done, and even during the pandemic and afterwards. So I'm grateful that you came and joined us and shared what your 2 cents worth of what can happen and how you can grow as an individual.
Right. I must indeed express my gratitude to you as well for holding the session so that we could be impacting the society in some way again.
Yes, well, thank you. And I'm grateful to many of my teachers who encouraged me to get into doing this, whether it's as teachers in the compassion area or even in music and dance. There's so much we learn from each other. Thanks again
Indeed.
and have a great rest of the weekend.
It was a pleasure, sir.